I was sitting at my desk, staring at my computer and surfing the internet. I know Halloween is basically 2 months away, but still, it's better to just have everything beforehand. I'm big on eBay and Etsy, supporting small businesses. So after spending 20 minutes on eBay and finding nothing I liked, it was on Etsy. First thing I typed into the search bar was scary masks and then waited for results. I scrolled down for a bit and then came across a profile with a picture I recognized from an artist I liked. I clicked on the picture and watched as my screen switched itself to their profile. Assuming by the name Brandon Goner, they were probably a guy, I looked at his About Me and it said he made masks and props. I clicked away and looked over his profile some more. He followed no one, and he also had no followers. His favorited shops were public, and the only thing he had favorited was a knife shop. He also had 2 collections of his own products. One was labeled masks, and the other props. I clicked on masks and scrolled through. All the masks were what seemed to be human and animal faces, all made with surprising detail. Unlike the human ones, the animal ones seemed to be made to give off the appearance of being stretched. Honestly, it kind of creeped me out how realistic they were, as if he had actually stretched the face of a real animal. I singled out one of the masks, a mask that appeared to be the face of a man, with a rugged cream skin and a scar dragging itself along its cheek. Freckles were littered across its face, and it had a light stubble. Again, the attention to detail was incredible, and it would be great for a costume I had in mind. I quickly got my credit card from my drawer and bought the mask. When I had officially confirmed the order, I wasn't expecting to get a message from Brandon. "Thanks for the purchase, smiley face. You're my first buyer." "Oh, no problem. I just needed the mask for Halloween, and yours look pretty cool. I'm going to throw in a few extra treats for you. A couple props maybe, and an animal mask since you were so kind." "Oh, you really don't have to. You should sell those." No. I need to get them off my back. They're taking up space in my apartment." After that, I didn't reply. I waited with anticipation until my package came the following Monday. The box was bigger than I expected. It was a plain cardboard box with no stickers or writing on it at all, which was strange, but I knew it had to be my order. I wasn't expecting anything else. But the smell was even stranger. I could smell it before I even opened the box. It was putrid and sour. I tried to breathe through my mouth, but I could taste it on my tongue, so I immediately closed my mouth. I sat down on my couch, package in my lap, and a knife by my side. As I drug my knife through the tape, my roommate came up behind me, his hand gripping the couch. "Hey, Carrie." He looked over my shoulder. "What's that?" I drug my knife through the rest of the tape and opened the box. Nothing, just stuff I got for Halloween." The mask I had originally ordered was on top of everything else. Nothing was wrapped, just lazily thrown on top of each other. I spotted a cat mask underneath my human one, making itself quite noticeable with its orange fur. I picked up the human mask and examined it. There were threads in the cheeks connecting themselves behind the face, which was probably so I could put it on and wear it, just like a normal mask. I ran my hands over the cheeks and immediately drew back. It felt like real skin. Like my skin. "Freaky," Jaden said, leaning over the couch. "I know, right?" I said, turning my head to look at him. His mouth was turned into a frown, and his eyebrows were furrowed. "That looks super real. What else is in there? You got props?" He reached over my shoulder, pulled a hand out of the box, and then dropped it immediately. Ew. He drew his hand back and wiped it on the couch like it had something on it. "What is that made of?" I have no idea. Weird, right? I grabbed the mask and waved it jokingly in front of Jaden's face, earning a loud groan and an eye roll. He shoved my hand away and looked at me again. "It smells like literal scat. Are you seriously gonna wear it?" "Well, duh, I'll just wipe it down or something." I put the mask back in the box and closed it. I don't know what I'm gonna do with all the random body parts, though. Just keep them away from me. And for Pete's sake, please put that in your room before it smells everything up," he called, walking over to the kitchen. "I should just put it in your room. It already reeks of BO, I told him as I stood up, the box in my arms. "It does not," he said, opening the fridge. "Whatever," I mumbled, walking to my room. I put the box in my closet, pushing it over on the top shelf above my clothes. really hoped it wouldn't stink up my closet or my clothes. I went to my bed and sat down, pulling out my phone and checking my notifications. The local news app I was subscribed to had posted a new article. It headlined, "Man Found Dead in Park. Police Say It's the Most Gruesome Thing They've Ever Seen." I'll just read you what the article said. At 6:22 a.m., the police got a call from a woman going on a jog at redacted park. Among the police's arrival, she claims to have spotted a leg poking out a bush and went to check on whoever it may have been. When she went to go check, she found that the leg wasn't attached to a body, prompting her to call the police. At first, I thought maybe it was just a prop, like a gag someone left there to freak people out. But the smell was so bad, and it looked so real, she said. Police searched the park and found a dead cat and man. His leg was missing, matched up with the one the jogger had found in the bushes. The police did not find a collar on the cat, nor did they find a face. The man currently remains unidentified, as his face was also missing, as well as one of his hands. The investigation will continue, and the woman will be brought into questioning, as well as other possible suspects. They did write more, but I didn't want to read the rest. I didn't say the park name, since it's not really a good idea to post the location of somewhere that's so close to where I live. I know I'm probably overreacting, like, I don't even know what that man looked like, or the cat, but it was so near to my house, and they looked so real. The coincidence is insane. And the smell is so bad, like it's actually rotting. As I'm writing this, I can smell the stink leaking out of my closet. I was really just gonna leave it and ignore it. I don't know if I should take it to the police or not. And a couple of minutes ago, I got this message from the seller. It's like he knows I'm thinking about it, and I'm really, really regretting buying from him. His last message read, "Did you like the masks? Sorry about the smell, by the way. The guy I got it from really stunk." Growing up, I never went Christmas tree shopping. We had a fake tree from the 90s that sat in our basement, only to come out for an elaborate assembly ritual every year. Sorting through the 100 plus plastic branches took hours, but it was something we were supposed to be grateful for. Just be glad you're not out in the freezing weather or trying to haul a 50-pound tree up onto the roof of the car, my mom would say. When I moved into a place of my own, though, I decided to put an end to this nonsense. We're going to get a real tree this year, I told my boyfriend Robert. We only had a 600 square foot apartment, but I was determined. We'd get a tiny, skinny little thing to rival Charlie Brown's if we had to. So one December evening, we went out over to the local farm to choose our tree. We went over to the local farm to choose our tree. I've never been Christmas tree shopping before, but as soon as we arrived, I knew I'd love it. Pre-cut trees were lined up in every row, each held upright by its own stand, spaced so close on the grass that they formed a dense forest. Edison light bulbs hung overhead, casting a warm, golden glow. The weather was weird that evening, unseasonably warm and foggy, and the way the light dispersed through the fog, silhouetting the trees, looked like a shot from a Hallmark movie. "This is so cool," I whispered to Robert. "Have you really never gotten a real tree before?" he asked. "Yep, never." What's that? I asked, pointing to the end of the field. There was a large plastic roll of something, and standing next to it, a man. He looked very fitting here, with his flannel shirt and lumberjack beard. It's netting they put up on the trees to keep all the branches in, so you can transport them more easily, he replied. Ooh, cool. I took him by the arm. Well, let's go find our tree. We started down one of the narrow aisles. The air smelled like pine, like that one candle Mom always burned around Christmas time. Robert tried to match my enthusiasm, but eventually seemed bored, lagging behind me as I ran through the place like an excited little girl. I finally stopped in front of a particularly beautiful tree. Its branches were thick and lush, and the fragrance of pine was strong, filling my nose. Slowly, I reached out to touch it. The needles were surprisingly soft and pliable under my fingers. Nothing like the shiny plastic ones I'd seen all my life. Robert, come here. I think I found... I stopped. Robert wasn't behind me. Robert? I glanced around, but all I saw were the pine trees. Rows and rows of them, like a thick forest all around me. The light bulbs buzzed above my head, their soft golden glow dispensing in the thick fog. Robert, where are you? I hurried down the aisle, needles scraping at my jacket. He couldn't have gone far. Probably started looking at memes on his phone and didn't even notice I was miles ahead of him. Robert! I called again. No answer. No answer. I pulled out my phone and shot off a text. Where are you? When no reply came, I sighed angrily and continued towards the Raleigh netty things. Maybe he was waiting for me there. But my sense of direction must have messed up because when I rounded the corner, there were just more trees. I pulled out my phone to call him, and that's when I heard the footsteps. Oh, thank goodness. I whipped around, trying to pinpoint the source. And then I saw it. A flash of motion between the trees. It wasn't Robert. It was the lumberjack guy that I'd seen standing next to the netting. He was in the next aisle over, slowly, methodically walking through the grass, as if looking for something. Maybe I can ask him if he saw Robert. I hurried down the aisle until I was several feet behind him, running parallel. I sucked in a breath and stopped dead. Something was swinging from his hand. Something heavy, glinting gold in the light strung above our heads. An axe. I stood frozen watching him until he turned the corner and disappeared among the trees. Of course. Of course he would have an axe. That's how they cut down trees, right? Never mind that these trees had already been cut down. Maybe he needed to... I don't know, trim them or something. Maybe... A scream echoed out on the... A scream echoed out on the other end of the field. My heart plummeted. Instinctually, I lurched forward to run towards the scream to see if it was Robert. Except I couldn't. I looked down to see that the bell bottom of my jeans was snagged on one of the needly branches. Oh, come on! I quickly reached down and unhooked it from my pants, and then I took off running down the aisle. But the aisle seemed so much narrower than before. I couldn't run that fast with the branches reaching in from both sides, clawing at my legs. A corner lay up ahead and I came to it. I prayed I'd see the parking lot at the other end with Robert waiting for me. I didn't. Ahead of me, there were just more trees. There were more trees. Like I was stuck in some sort of Christmas tree maze, like they were rearranging themselves to block off all exits, and the aisle was impossibly narrow now. I had to stop running so that I wouldn't trip over the branches extending into the path. The progress was slow, but I kept going, leaping over branches, needles scratching at my face, snagging on my jacket. And then I heard a sound. It was coming off to my right, a sort of rolling sound, like a something round being turned over and over. I ran over to the impossibly thick tangle of tree branches and peered out. More trees, but beyond them, I could see the checkout station with the roll of netting for packing the trees. The lumberjack man was there packing something. It wasn't a tree. My stomach lurched as I saw what looked like a body being wrapped in white netting. The body of a man wearing a black jacket and a striped hat. I pushed myself through the hedge. The branches stabbed at me, scraping me so hard against my arms that they drew blood, and then finally, I popped out on the other side. If the checkout station was there, I knew the parking lot was to the left, so I kept going, pushing myself through the tangled web of branches until I was bloody and bruised on the other side. I locked myself in the car, and then I called 911. By the time the police had arrived, the man was gone. So was Robert. Both had disappeared. And the patch of Christmas trees looked as magical as it did when we arrived. The police have been searching for Robert for the past 5 days. Nothing has come up. No evidence, no clues, no body. I know in my heart that he isn't here with us anymore. His family is still holding on to hope, but I know what happened to him that day. Sometimes I wonder if there's a reason we haven't found his body yet. Maybe he was put in that netting for a reason. Maybe. That farm doesn't only sell trees. I work in a seasonal Halloween store. You probably know the one I'm talking about. We typically pop up in the plazas or mall fronts that are run down in your small town. We show up for about 2 months, and then we're gone. It's not a bad job. I'm able to work around my school schedule, and as a Halloween fanatic, it's pretty neat. I've done this enough where I've been able to become the key holder / shift lead. We get all kinds of customers. Small kids looking for costumes, adults looking for party decorations, dads going all out to make their houses the spookiest spot on the block, etc. I've done this a couple of seasons now. I was never surprised. Until lately. It started as a normal day. I was fronting all of the decorations and putting back the costumes that people haphazardly put in the wrong place. I was scarfing down a frozen burrito on my lunch break when I saw him come in. This dude, he had to be about 6'6". He was wearing an orange jumpsuit and had on a mask. And this mask was very elaborate. It was pale gray, bluish. The eyes were hollow and blacked out, so mesh hiding his eyes. The lips were stitched. So this isn't out of the ordinary. People do this pretty often. They dress up, come in a shop, and try to get a reaction out of some kids or record TikToks. Gotta look at this jag-off, I told Penn. It was just me and him closing the store. We had one of those relationships where we weren't a couple, but everyone wondered why, and I think we wondered why too. Yeah, that guy sure is scary. His mask is a winner. I've never seen it online or in any other store. The man casually browsed some of our decorations, and I let him be. He came for attention, and I wasn't going to validate him. Not until he walked through some of our displays where we have the animatronics, a vibrating floor, and a fog machine. It's really just a fun walkthrough for kids to get a quick spook in. Well, a small boy was walking through, already nervous, and this man jumped into the path and let out a mighty laugh. The boy screamed and ran to his mother, leaving behind a puddle that I'd have to clean. I went to confront the man and ask him to leave, but before I could, the child's mother came up to me and gave me an earful. I apologized even though I had done nothing wrong, gave the kid a costume and sent them out. Suddenly, the man was gone. I walked back to the register and put on some campy horror movie that sits at the TV by the register. I started talking to Penn about classes I was taking and was going to invite him on a date. Well, two ladies walked in that I happened to recognize from around the college. They went to the sexy costume aisles and grabbed about 3 or 4 costumes apiece. Penn guided them to the private changing rooms that we keep available. He came back and had a smirk on his face. Sexy cats, Playboy bunnies, nurses, and poison ivy. How original. We both let out a chuckle, and I had built the courage. Hey, when we get out of here, do you want to catch one of those midnight showings at the drive-in? I can swing by the house and grab some snacks and set the truck up for optimal viewing. He bit his lip, looked at the ground, and then at me. He bust out laughing and then punched me in the shoulder. Heck yeah, I'll go on a date with you, he said. I felt on top of the world. He went to help a horror dad look at the yard decorations while I was having my celebration internally. I went to put in a new CD in the store PA when we heard a woman screaming. Penn and I took off as fast as we could toward the changing rooms. The tall masked man had ripped open one of the changing room doors and threw a gallon of fake blood all over one of those girls while she was changing costumes. Penn quickly grabbed one of the ponchos we saw and covered the crying girl. Her friend heard the commotion and came out of her stall, helping Penn lead the girl into the staff bathroom to get the fake blood out of her eyes and attempt to clean her up. I was livid. I quickly raced to the man and yelled, "Hey, perv! I don't know what your game is, but you have to leave now!" Another customer chirped in, "Hey, step away from him. The police are on their way." The man turned and stormed off out the entrance doors. Some minutes later, local PD came out. I talked with them while Penn gathered the woman's street clothes. I told the officers all I knew and pulled up what security camera footage I could. But all of it was really useless. I mean, the dude was in a costume. I have no true description of him other than him being tall. We did see that he pulled off in an old Ford Festiva, but we couldn't make out the plates. He'd parked away far enough that the footage was grainy. The officers spoke with the two women and went on their way. I gathered up the mop to go clean up the mess that the man had made. Closing time came around, and Penn told me he was heading out. It was my job to do closing operations such as security codes and counting the tills at the end, so I told him I'd be leaving in an hour and would swing by the house to get the truck ready and pick him up. He gave me a small kiss on the cheek and left. I quickly went to the office and counted the money and locked the office on my way out. Heading to the front door, I noticed another spill. Great, more punk kids and fake blood, back near the changing rooms again. I figured some kid made off to play while some parent wasn't paying attention. I opened the curtain, and my stomach dropped. Penn lay there in a pool of blood, mouth bubbling and tears falling from his face. He managed to look past me before he grew silent. I quickly called EMT and told them that there was a murder. First responders would be on the way, but it would take them at least 10 minutes. I felt 2 hands on my shoulder, and then I was flung into a display of pitchforks and sling blades. Looking up, my eyes met him. The man with the mask. He sat on me and put his hands around my throat. I could see his tongue licking the stitches while I was reaching for anything I could find. There was nothing in my reach, but I put my hands on his face. The mask felt like real skin. I managed to put my thumbs closer to his eyes, and in a moment of pure instinct, I jammed my thumbs into his eyes. The mesh broke, and I was able to get a pretty good hit there. However, it only lasted a second, but it was enough to clear my airway and swipe his ankle on my way out from under him. I took off to the front door to escape, only to find it locked. I banged on the door until my hand bled, and I ran into one of our walkthroughs, hoping I could wait it out until maybe the cops could bust in. I curled into a corner and held my breath. Minutes later, I could hear the man whistling and laughing as he checked in containers. He made his way into the encampment I had burrowed into and triggered some lights and fog. Doing so set off an animatronic witch. She began to rock back and forth, and it exposed me. He saw me and pulled out his knife. He put his hands on me while I managed to knock the witch over as he pulled me out. She fell against him. She wasn't heavy, but it was just enough resistance I could run. At this point, I saw the blue lights and police working on opening the door. They barely had it cracked, and I burst out crying. They stormed into the area but couldn't find the killer. EMT examined me and I was stable enough to go home. They checked in on Penn, but it was too late. He had been gone the moment I was with him. Be safe this season. And watch out for people in costumes. I've been single my entire life. I really don't mind it. It's just how I've always been. And yet, I still buy Valentine's candy and a card every year. That simple thing saves my life. I moved to a small town right before starting high school. It was difficult trying to make new friends and adjusting to an entirely new place at the same time. By the time February rolled around, I was finally feeling as if I'd gotten into the groove of things. I had only made a handful of friends, and to my shock, the first time I was ever asked out on a date was a week before Valentine's Day. I felt awkward going out with a guy who I'd never spoken with before, so I turned him down. He got angry, claiming he had other options and was just being nice. And that might be the case, but his extreme reaction confused me. When I was able to, I asked my friend Travis about it.
Oh yeah, you die if you're single on Valentine's Day. Get your heart ripped out and everything. So find a boyfriend for the day.
He explained, and I scoffed at the idea. Come on, you don't expect me to believe that, do you? I asked, thinking he was just pulling a joke on the new kid. He acted as if he was giving me some facts. He was looking at me as if I was crazy for not knowing about getting a date or dying. I told him he was crazy, but he just shook his head.
It happens every year. Someone gets their heart ripped out. It might not be in this town, but like it's nearby. And it's always someone single. I guess you can risk it, but why? It's just one day.
He said, trying to defend his point. This was before everyone had a cell phone in their pocket, so I couldn't look up deaths of people missing their hearts right then. I made a note to research it later, so I could call him out on his urban legend. I crossed my arms, still not buying what he was saying. That's stupid. Are you saying what? Someone knows you're single and kills you? I pressed.
A person doesn't do it. Some sort of monster does. No one has lived after seeing it, but people said they heard drums and then found someone without their heart.
Travis was again looking at me as if I should know all this. A Valentine's Day monster? Really?
Well, Christmas has Santa and there's an Easter bunny, so why can't Valentine's Day have something?
For the next 10 minutes, I roasted his idea and belief in the Valentine's Day monster. At least he could take it all as a joke, even if he did believe the murders were real. He wasn't positive a monster was doing it, but he couldn't offer up any other reason behind the deaths. And he wasn't risking it. He already had a date lined up with a girl he didn't even like. I still thought the entire idea was dumb. The rest of the school didn't share my outlook. As the day slowly got closer and closer to the fated day, the students got paired up with each other. Some done out of safety, others using the monster as an excuse to finally ask out their crush. I received a few pity offers, but I refused all of them as an act of rebellion against this stupid small town's tradition. I just watched as everyone started dating in fear of death. The store sold out of candy and cards pretty quick. Normally everywhere would be flooded with red and pink products. The shelves were barren a few days before the 14th. Now, I refused to accept any offers, and I didn't plan on asking someone out either. The school offered a program where you could buy sweetheart candies to be delivered to class for a small fee. I didn't mind getting my new friends one each, all while making up silly names to put on the card of who they would receive it from. It was the only thing related to the whole day I gave into, aside from buying a box of chocolates for myself. The chocolates were just a normal box of assorted types from the grocery store I'd gotten with some money made from my chores. When I bought them, the cashier slapped a heart-shaped sticker on the box without my permission. A small one for someone to write who the box was meant for. With how crazy this town was over the holiday, I didn't blame her. By that time, I'd been so overexposed to anything Valentine's related, just seeing the sticker put me off from eating the chocolates. I shoved them into my backpack to forget about them until the 14th was over. I really wish I had taken the entire thing a bit more seriously. It wasn't until the night before Valentine's Day that I finally looked up the murders, finding them to be true. Dread started to form in my stomach as I scrolled through the library computer after school while waiting for my father to pick me up. I didn't find all the mysterious deaths, but enough to make me worried. 3 people were found with their hearts missing. The police said that from the state of their bodies, they were killed on Valentine's Day, even though their bodies weren't found right away. An entire town was warning me about this, and yet I still sat in shock after finding out it was true. My father finally got me from school, but told me I needed to walk home the next day. I sat in the car silently debating on what to do. He just chalked up my distressed state as a normal teenage behavior. I didn't sleep that night. I tried thinking of names of students that might not have a date, all while knowing it was useless. When the clock turned midnight, and it was officially the 14th, I nearly had a panic attack, convinced the monster would swoop in to take my heart. The only way I got through that night without a mental breakdown was to shift my train of thought back to what it was before looking up the murders. The Valentine's Day monster was stupid. It wasn't real. Some heartless store manager saw the murders and made up the story to sell more products through fear. That was it. That had to be it. I remained awake all night. In the morning, my mother noticed how I looked and offered to let me stay home. I refused, secretly hoping I could find a date if I went to school. The place was abuzz with new couples and gift exchanges. As I walked down the hallway, a few students looked at me with pity in their eyes. Most knew my single stance and how I would be the monster's top choice if it was real. No one went near me that day if they could help it. My few new friends awkwardly tried to find reasons to rush off if I tried to talk to them. All of them having temporary new significant others gave them a good enough reason to be left out. My candy heart prank wasn't funny. Some thought it was, but I couldn't find the humor in anything that day. Instead, I spent it looking over my shoulder, expecting to hear drums at any second. The final bell rang and Travis was brave enough to walk over to me for a chat. I think he thought it was going to be our last conversation. The idea got him motivated enough to walk over, but not to find the words.
Do you, want to come over? I'm going out today, but maybe we can hang out beforehand? There's a really good show and...
He trailed off, feeling awkward. It's fine. I'll just chill at home. My parents are going out and won't be home until after dinner, so I have the entire place to myself. And that never happens. They finally think I'm old enough to be trusted home alone. I explained, determined to still not believe in this nonsense, even though I was terrified. Travis nodded, looking pale. He wasn't brave enough to press me on hanging out. After all, he was certain I was going to die that night. He didn't want to be around to see it. I'll talk to you tomorrow, I said, and gave him a shaky wave. He gave one back and started to hurry over to his new girlfriend. When you're a teenager, everything is a big deal. As I walked away from school towards home, I felt like I was walking towards my own death. The sky was overcast. It made me feel even more gloomy. I kept mocking myself for my mood as I walked along the neighborhoods that had become familiar to me over the past few months. Finding a small rock, I started to kick it as I walked, trying to take my mind off the fear in my chest. A car started to drive along behind me with such loud music I could hear it thumping through the air. I watched it cruise by, a bit annoyed over the sound. If you're going to blast music, at least play something good and not something that just thudded. As the car kept going down the street, the music went with it. But a hint of the thudding remained. I stopped, confused on why I would still hear the sound if the car was so far. When it finally turned out of sight, I realized the car wasn't the source of all the noise. My heart started to beat so fast and hard it matched the thudding rhythm that I could swear was getting closer and closer. I didn't look behind me or even get angry at myself for getting scared. I just ran down the street. I should have run up to one of those houses asking for help. I was so frightened, nothing rational came to mind. I ran like crazy all the while that beating followed. I wished this was a prank, but didn't stop running to find out. My mind was unable to work as my lungs burned from the mad dash. For a moment, I thought I was losing whatever was chasing me. I stumbled, nearly falling over a crooked sidewalk square in front of my house. I couldn't tell how close the thumping sound was over my own heart. Sweat poured down my face, and I felt faint. I slammed into my front door, banging on it before I remembered my parents were out. I nearly screamed in frustration. The door was locked and my keys were buried under my books inside my backpack. That thudding sound was all I heard. It was so close it rumbled in my chest. My hand shook as I fumbled to get the zipper open. I was scared to death and couldn't keep my eyes open. Squeezing them shut, I felt around in my bag for my key. My hand brushed against it when a puff of wind came across my face. I smelled something sweet, and then the wind came again. To my horror, my mind clued into the fact it wasn't the wind, but something breathing on my face. It was too late. Even if I got my key, I couldn't unlock the door before whatever brought the heart-thumping sound took my heart too. I refused to open my eyes to see the monster I now knew to be real.
I love the sound of your heart. It's a shame it's alone. Let me add it to the others.
The voice that spoke wasn't some prank. It was twisted and beyond anything a human could make. My mind was racing. I felt a sharp tip of a claw poke my chest, leaving a small cut through my shirt. A cruel laugh came as I whimpered in fear. With my hand still in my backpack, I felt something that was not my books or my house key. A crazy idea came to mind. It was either that or death. So I grabbed a hold of the only thing I could think of. Yanking the box of chocolates from my bag, I held it out to the monster I still refused to see. My voice strained and shaking. I asked it a question I prayed would save my life. Will you be my Valentine this year? My heart nearly beat out of my chest. Opening my eyes a crack, I could see the box in my hand, but not the creature that brought along countless heartbeats that mixed in with my own. I should have died. Instead of clawing out my heart, the twisted hand with razor-sharp nails reached out and took the box. I forced my eyes shut, my entire body shaking. Something brushed my face, causing me to tense up so much it hurt. That clawed finger brushed some hair from my face with another cruel laugh.
What a cute child you are. I'll accept this gift this year. But someday I'll be back to claim your heart.
I bit down on my tongue, trying not to scream at that horrible voice. With one final laugh that rattled my bones, the thudding stopped. It took me forever to gather my courage before I opened my eyes. Nothing was on the step in front of me. I was alone. If it wasn't for the rip in my shirt, I would have thought the whole thing just came about due to stress and lack of sleep. I didn't tell anyone what happened. I mean, who would believe me? I went to school for the first half of the day on the 15th. I had barely slept for 2 days and needed to take the rest of the day off. But I didn't want my friends to think I died. All of them looked shocked I'd lived. I just said I got lucky. The school moved on. The short-lived relationships caused by that day fizzed out. As time crept along, I started to dread knowing Valentine's Day was coming yet again. I bought more candy, roses, and a card, expecting a visit from that monster. I should have just gone along and dated someone, but somehow the idea of it was more stressful than dealing with a monster. I anticipated and feared Valentine's Day, only to have nothing happen. Nothing happens besides the fact that the gifts I addressed to the creature go missing overnight. As the years carried on, I kept buying different gifts with the same result. As I've gotten older, I've heard those terrible heartbeats faintly on Valentine's Day. Each year, the sound gets louder. I think this year is finally going to be when that monster shows itself. Again. Just asking someone out may save my life. But I think if the monster does show up, I'll ask it the question yet again. But this time, I will keep my eyes open.